Okay, y'all, let me just say this. I made this after I figured it out. Here are some of the items you might want to get. Steel wool or sandpaper, Phillips head screwdriver, a drill with a couple bits to use in the drill, a yardstick, either metal or wood, and then poly shade stain and polyurethane one step. That means that when you finish, it should be pretty glossy, but you can always add more. Oh, I can't forget this. You need the actual piece of banister wood and a couple banister returns. This is the stairway that goes down to the basement, and as you can see, there's no banister. But I think it's time for a banister. First step is to look and study. Check out the wall, see what I'm working with and what has to be done. As you can see, there's a piece of wood separating this wall. So I'll probably put 2 pieces of wood for 2 banisters on this wall. The first thing I'm going to grab is a yardstick. It could be metal or it could be wood. It doesn't really matter. And I use this to measure off where the top of the banister will fall, the height of the banister. From what I understand, the banister, according to code, should be no more than 34 inches and no less than 32 inches. So I think I'm going to go with 33 just to be on the safe side. So once I placed the yardstick on the top step, I came down to 33. And that tells me approximately where my banister will fall. But at that point, you still have to take off a couple more inches, and I'll show you why. I have to take off about 4 inches, and I'm going to end up with a mark around the 29 inch on this yardstick for the height of my banister. Well, not the height of the banister, but the hole, the first hole for the banister. Okay, so I'm taking the piece of wood and I'm measuring that to about, looks like 1 1/4 inches. And then I'm going to take the return of the banister, this gold piece right here, and I'm going to measure that, and it's coming up to about 3 1/4 inches. And I come up with about 4 1/2 inches. I chose to take off 4 instead of 4 1/2. No reason. Okay, so at this point, it's time to start finding the studs along the wall. And I can see that there's a piece of, as you can see, I put a mark there already. This is a piece of wood here, so I'm assuming that piece of wood is attached to a stud. So I'm going to go along from that stud to find the next stud along this wall. And here I have my handy dandy stud finder that I picked up at Lowe's, and it wasn't much money, but it works really good. And we're going to go along the wall until it beeps. And that's where I put my first mark, right there where it beeped. That's the edge of the first stud that I found. Now I'm going to come to the other side of the stud and come back toward the stud until I hear beep. And this is where I put my second mark for the stud. And just looking at these marks, you can tell that it's about 2 inches. And in the middle of each stud, this is where you want to put your hole. Close enough. As you can see, I have one marking there. And then I go to the other side of the stud. Okay, I found 1, 2, and 3. 3 studs. Alright, we have 3 studs, and I'm going to take my yardstick and measure up 29 inches in the middle of each stud from each step. Now that we have the dots, we're going to connect them. Many people use a blue string, but I'm working alone. Now I'm taking the ruler and I'm connecting the dots. And that's going to give me the angle of the banister. From what I understand, you should have 9 or 10 inches before your first hole on the banister. And I'll show you why later. I'm so unorthodox with my work. I kind of messed up. Banister piece. Circle, circle. That shows me where the banister handle's gonna go. Drill. Started the holes. Okay, at this point, I attached a banister piece. It's usually the short screws that come with the banister piece to the banister. I tell you what, you have to be patient to do this job. Second screw. All right, it's on pretty sturdy. Everything looks good. All right, as you can see, I've already drilled my hole till I felt a little bit of wood, and then I drilled a little bit past just to start a little hole in the wood. From here, I took the screw, put it in the return, and then I attached the banister to the wall. Second return is in, and now all I have to do is turn this so that I can lay the wood on it, so I will know where to put my marks for the new hole. Just to recap, this piece was in the wall and this piece was in the wall, but not attached to the wood. So I screwed this in the wall. This is how I made my second markings for my holes. At this point, the top is loosely in and the banister is leaning on the second handle. So then I took it back off and I drilled the holes where I've had the marks, and then I attached the handle to the wood, after which I put back on the wall. Alright, still a little bit wobbly. Let me screw it a little tighter. See if this works. It should. I can tell that it is in the wood. Alrighty. Okay, let me just get a little feel coming from the top. Feels pretty stable. Not bad, not bad. Okay, y'all, here's the big mistake. Starting that screw too close to the edge of the wood. And now you see I have a crack in the wood, and I actually had to use another piece of wood to complete this project. Now on to the staining of this banister. And I'm going to take this blue tape and protect the gold returns by wrapping the blue tape all around it. After I covered both the bronze post returns with the blue tape, then I'm ready to start staining. Now, as you can see, I am using a sponge paintbrush, and I'm hoping that this brush works pretty good. It's just a test, and we'll see how it works out. Okay, it feels like it's going on pretty smooth, and I'll just continue on and do the entire banister. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do both banisters with the stain. Just going to show one here, and then I'm going to let it dry for about an hour or two before I put on the next coat. And I'm trying to make sure I touch all parts of the banister, and even the under part of the banister. You want that done too, so it can be nice and smooth as you run your hand down it, going down the steps. After the first coat is dry, then I take a piece of Brillo or sandpaper and I run it up and down the entire banister, even underneath the banister, in order to smooth it down, because at this point it feels rough through the hands. Not too hard, just a nice stroke up and down the banister on all sides, and this smooths it down pretty good, and it works the stain into the wood. This helps to make it really look nice and authentic. All right, and here I am doing the bottom of the banister, making sure I touch all parts. After this step is finished, then I take a wet or damp paper towel and I rub down the entire banister. And you can use a damp rag. And this is just to wipe away all dust that might have settled on the banister in order to do the second coat of staining. And here's just a quick view of the second banister that I'm staining. And again, making sure that I touch every part of this banister. Okay, so after letting the banister dry and putting on 2 to 3 coats, whichever one you prefer, it's all in how you like it. The banister came out like this. Just remember that in between each drying session, you have to Brillo it down and wipe it with a damp paper towel or wet cloth. Looking pretty good, if I may say so myself. But not that wallpaper. It's time to come down. Well, back to the subject. The coloring is pretty good. I'm satisfied. And if you're not satisfied, you can always go out and buy some polyurethane or some acrylic covering to even make it more shinier. Now right here, I think I'm going to put another return because it's sturdy, but it's not as sturdy as I want it. And I think I'm going to put an anchor in this top before I put this top screw back in too, because I want it really, really sturdy. And you can put an anchor in each hole. You might have to cut it a little because of the wood. Remember I told y'all I had 3 studs. Well, I'm going to use all of them. All right, I'm going to put the return right here in the middle of this stud. Now I just got to figure out where my holes are going to go on the banister. Yes, I took this banister down one more last time. I know this is unorthodox, and I know that there's probably an easier way to do it. But I got the job done. That's all I can say. Okay, the third one is up. And now it's feeling pretty sturdy. Yeah, this is the feel I want. As I said, that top banister was a little long. It's longer than the bottom banister. So I needed this extra foundation for it. But it looks really nice. I am happy.